Then they referenced a jail recording in which Gregory McMichael had referred to Roddy Bryan as an ally. Hey, what's up, Inquirers? Today we are going to be taking a look at the first half of the preliminary hearing in the Ahmaud Arbery case. I'm going to be going over some of the notes that I've taken and doing a little discussion on some of the things that we found out. Thank you for watching. This is Inspiring Inquiry. Alright, so basically in this video what I want to do is a TLDR of the events that took place during the preliminary hearing the other day. So I kind of wanted to talk about what the preliminary hearing is about and what took place, at least as far as the special prosecutor and special investigator. And then I'll do another video talking about what the defendants actually said and what their case was against the charges that were brought against the three defendants. So first off, a preliminary hearing. This preliminary hearing was requested by the defense attorneys. Now it is to contest the charges that were brought against them. In the case of Travis McMichael, it's felony murder based on aggravated assault with aggravated assault. So that means that he was in the commission of an aggravated assault against another person. And when that person died, Ahmaud Arbery, that's when it got bumped up to murder. So it's murder based on the pretense of aggravated assault. Then you have Gregory McMichael, who is getting charged with felony murder based on being a party to the crime of aggravated assault, as well as being party to the crime of aggravated assault. And William Roddy Bryan, who is being charged with felony murder and criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment. So the special prosecutor is Jesse Evans. He starts out by saying Ahmaud Arbery, who was chased down, hunted, and ultimately executed. And these are the words that he starts his thing with. He also raises some concerns. So the defense attorney for William Roddy Bryan, Kevin Gow, articulated some speculation as to how this court might rule on some things. And so the special prosecutor was saying that he doesn't understand why he was raising those concerns or had that speculation, because the court had only shown him just, the utmost respect and whatnot. So they talk about Arbery, the fact that he was 25, he loved to run, how far away he lived. They talk about Travis McMichael, the fact that he used to serve in the Coast Guard. They talk about Greg McMichael and the institutions that he was a part of prior to his retirement. And that is Brunswick Judicial Circuit, Glenn County PD, Brunswick PD, and the Department of Natural Resources. Then he asks specifically, has he worked with the same agency that was investigating the Ahmaud Arbery case? And that was a yes. They talk about William Roddy Bryan. He was 50. He lived down the street from them. They talk about Satilla Shores, the house that was under construction. The special investigator describes it as an unsecure home with no interior walls, no garage door, and they couldn't tell if there was a front door to it either. He said basically it was just easy to walk through. He also points out that nothing was ever taken from the house, and Mr. English said that he wasn't aware of anything ever being taken from the house other than a couple pieces of wood that they attributed to some kids, and Mr. English actually said that he knew who those kids were and he never called the cops on them. Numerous witnesses say that Ahmaud Arbery was an avid runner. They actually got people in that neighborhood of Satilla Shores to actually say that they had seen Ahmaud Arbery running around the neighborhood. In one instance, I actually think that he stated one of them said that they had had conversations with Arbery in the past. As to the idea of whether or not Arbery or other people were getting water that was located on a part of the house and down by the dock, he said that he wasn't able to confirm that. They talked about the Facebook page and whether or not people had had discussions about, the prior incidents and whatnot. He said yes, that they had had discussions. So then they basically move on to piecing together a timeline of when things happen. He comes in, he talks about Arbery coming into the house, looking around. Then the person calls 911. He exits. As he exits, he runs in front of Greg McMichael's house. That's when Greg McMichael sees him. And this is where he articulates that Greg McMichael said that he was going based off of a gut feeling that he had, that Arbery was the person involved in the previous, what they called trespassings. As Ahmaud Arbery is running down the street, he runs in front of Greg McMichael's house. That's when Greg McMichael runs inside, gets Travis, says the guy's running down the street. They get their weapons, a .357 Magnum and the Remington shotgun, which was a 12 gauge. And they point out that at this point, no one had called 911 other than the neighbor that seen him in the house. So Gregory McMichael nor Travis McMichael had called 911 at the point that they went to go chase him down. He said that they noticed on the surveillance footage that you can see Gregory and Travis McMichael in their truck pulling out and heading down the direction towards Mr. Arbery. He asks them if they caught up. He says yes. That's when they go to how Roddy Bryan got involved. He says that he sees them in pursuit and doesn't know what's going on. Doesn't know Travis, but he knows Greg and asks him, "Do you got him?" He then goes, gets his keys, and then jumps into his truck. Still, at this time, even when Roddy Bryan is getting involved, no 911 calls have been made. Arbery continued running down Burford Road past Mr. Roddy Bryan's house. The McMichaels following him at this time. Arbery continued down Burford. He stops, turns around, and goes back the other way. The McMichaels stop, and that's when Greg McMichael gets out, and they start talking about their tactics. Now, according to Roddy Bryan and Travis McMichael's statements, at this time is when Roddy Bryan pulls his truck out after he's already gotten his keys. Ahmaud Arbery has stopped, turned around, and come back towards Roddy Bryan. Roddy pulls his truck out to block him. Ahmaud Arbery runs down and around his truck and ends up going past him. At this point, that's when Travis McMichael and Gregory McMichael are discussing their tactics, and that's when Gregory McMichael says, "Let's go back down there towards him," and Travis McMichael says, "No, jump in the back. We're gonna cut back around, and we're gonna cut him off in front of him down Holmes Road." Arbery, having run around Roddy's truck, continues going down as Roddy begins to pursue him, making several more attempts to try and cut him off. The special prosecutor points out that several times their action caused Mr. Arbery to change his directional path. Arbery, running away from the men in question now, is heading back the way he came, back down Satilla Drive. As he is going to head back down that way, Roddy Bryan goes to attempt to cut him off and actually overshoots it, causing Ahmaud Arbery to have to run down Holmes Road. As Roddy begins to pursue him again, this is the point at which he starts recording. Now, he started recording a lot earlier than what we had all seen. The portion that we have all seen on the internet was a much shorter clip of a much longer video. The problem with it is that whenever they released the video, apparently one of the defendant's attorneys had shortened the video to what he considered to be the most relevant part. Things that happened before that, Roddy Bryan had actually taken the phone and set it down. So really all we got was audio. We didn't have any video. And then when the video that we have all seen is when he actually picks it back up and starts filming what is going on, what is transpiring. So at this point, you have Ahmaud Arbery running down Holmes Road. You have Travis and Gregory McMichael coming around to meet him in the front of that road, and you have William Roddy Bryan coming up behind him. Now, the special investigator says that Ahmaud Arbery must have seen Travis and Gregory McMichael down there, because at this point, he stops again, turns around, and starts running back towards Mr. Bryan. Now, when he did this, Mr. Bryan was somewhat parked in the middle of the road, but Ahmaud Arbery ran right past him. As he ran past him, so did the Travis and Gregory McMichael came up behind him and went past Roddy Bryan, actually passing Ahmaud Arbery and getting in front of him. This is when the video that we have all seen starts. This is why you have Roddy Bryan driving down Holmes Road with Ahmaud Arbery in front of him, and then you see Gregory and Travis McMichael in front of Ahmaud Arbery, stopped in the middle of the street and outside of the truck wielding their weapons. Now, somewhere in the point of when Ahmaud Arbery went running past him, they also point out that at this point, Ahmaud Arbery had somehow made contact with William Roddy Bryan's truck. They talk about how Roddy Bryan thought that he was trying to grab the door handle at one point, and they actually removed cotton fibers along the bed liner of Roddy Bryan's truck, as well as right below those cotton fibers, they found a dent. They said that that dent on the truck they were attributing to Ahmaud Arbery. Now, this is key to remember, because this instance that takes place right here, whether it was Ahmaud Arbery going for the handle of the truck, but just the fact that they found those dents and those fibers, this comes up later in one of the defense's arguments. So at this point, we have everything set up the way that we've seen it in the video. You have Roddy Bryan behind him filming the incident. You have Ahmaud Arbery running down the road in front of him. And then you have the two men wielding their guns out in front of him. As we have all seen many times, I'm sure, the video plays out. We know the things that carry on after that. So then they start talking about the details of what happened on the video. The special investigator says that they had done something to clean up, and the words that he used were stabilize the video, and they were able to see things that we weren't able to see in the original cut of the video. He explains that Travis raised the gun at Ahmaud Arbery at one point in a firing position towards him. That's when he describes what Ahmaud Arbery did. He ran around the truck, and he points out the same thing that I have pointed out in my other videos, that Travis McMichael was standing outside of his truck with the door to his truck at his back. He had the door open and he was standing there with a gun. He points out the fact that Ahmaud Arbery ran away from Travis McMichael and around the truck, and that's when Travis McMichael went around the front of the truck towards Mr. Arbery. Now, I thought this was important to point out because a lot of people were saying he charged him, he went after him, he could have went any other ways. Well, from this testimony, we can see that there was a number of times that he tried to go a number of different ways, and they blocked him at every turn. They used 2 trucks to corral him. One of the trucks having 2 people, one of those people being in the back with a .357 Magnum. So he points out that Travis McMichael had moved towards him. Then he says that the 2 men engaged in confrontation. You can hear the first shot. Then they go off screen. You see the blood mist. Then they come back into screen. Then you see the 3rd shot, or you hear the 3rd shot. That's when Ahmaud Arbery wobbles, stumbles, and eventually falls onto the ground. Now, according to Gregory McMichael's statements, he only heard 2 shots, but the special investigator says that he doesn't think he was lying. He just thinks that he was mistaken in the chaos of everything that was going on. So then they talk about those shots. There were 3 shots, 1 to the center chest, 1 to the upper armpit chest area, and then 1 to the right wrist. They also cover something that I didn't even realize in my other videos, which I'm kind of ashamed of because I actually own a similar shotgun. People were saying that you can't tell who fired the shots because they were wrestling over a gun, and it could have been Arbery pulling on the gun, it could have been Travis McMichael pulling on the trigger, but we don't know who exactly fired the shots. It was a pump shotgun. He had to pump it for it to be able to fire the first shot. So yes, they may have been doing that before, but now it has come out that Travis McMichael actually admitted to firing the first shot. Then the gun was pumped 2 more times. Aside from the word of Travis McMichael, they also ask, is there any other evidence that shows that Travis McMichael did fire the first shot, and which one was the first shot? Was it the chest? Was it the upper armpit area chest? Or was it the wrist? They said that there's evidence to show that it was the chest was the first shot, because after the first shot is made, you can see a red bloody spot on the front of Ahmaud Arbery's shirt in the video that they have. At this point, they bring out a map and they kind of rehash some of the events, but they use the map as kind of a guide to show like where he went and just to get a better picture of all the things that we've already discussed. They talk about the time and the weather conditions, the fact that it was broad daylight in the middle of the day. They state that apparently the officers heard the shots on the way to the scene. And they also talk about what options Mr. Arbery had in this situation, at what points he was able to get out of the neighborhood, and at what points he was stopped from being able to get out of the neighborhood. He says that if he was able to continue to go down Satilla Drive or even down Holmes Road up to Zellwood Drive, he still would have been able to get out. But the fact is that he had people corralling him, keeping him from even being able to get out of the neighborhood. So now that we've gone over what events took place and, the scene of the murder, they talk about the cause and manner of death. They've logged the cause of the death, a gunshot wound, and the manner to be homicide. They go on to talk about Greg McMichael's statements that he gave to police and the fact that they were recorded on body cam. And yes, they have reviewed that body cam footage. It still hasn't been released to the public yet, so I haven't had a chance to go over it. Greg McMichael makes admissions to seeing him running and having a gut feeling that Arbery was connected to the other events. So it says that he used an intuition. Greg McMichael himself, in his own statement, said that he used his intuition that Arbery was the person connected to these. Not that he actually had direct, immediate knowledge of him committing any sort of crime whatsoever. It was his gut feeling. And then they clarified that Greg McMichael, in his statements, said himself that Roddy attempted to block him in. And apparently in the body cam footage, which we haven't been able to go over yet, he said to the officer that he told his son Travis, don't shoot. Now, there's a couple ways that you can take this because it's a little bit ambiguous as to what he means here. Does he mean don't shoot, like as in don't shoot, like he was just saying don't twice? Or was he saying don't shoot, like don't not shoot him, Travis? Like telling him to shoot him if he gets the case, to not shoot him. So it's a little unclear as to what exactly he meant just by those words. It could have been him misspeaking, or it could have been him saying to his son, don't not shoot him. He even said that himself in his statement that if he had gotten the gun away from Travis, that he would have shot him with his .357. They go on to talk about some of William Roddy Bryan's statements and that he admits to joining in the pursuit and using his vehicle to block him, and that Arbery had doubled back in attempting to get away, and that Roddy Bryan saw Travis stopped in the middle of the roadway. Then, unfortunately, they start talking about events that had transpired after Ahmaud Arbery had gotten shot, but before the police had got there. Roddy Bryan makes a claim that Travis McMichael had made certain statements after he shot Ahmaud Arbery and before the police had got there, statements of a racist nature. These are not remarks that I'm going to repeat on this channel. I'm sure that you can find, and there's plenty of news coverage that have covered the remarks that Roddy Bryan claimed Travis McMichael made. But like I said, I'm not going to play them on this channel. Then they went on to confirm that Greg McMichael and Roddy Bryan had a conversation about the events after they had took place. Then they referenced a jail recording in which Gregory McMichael had referred to Roddy Bryan as an ally, which I'm not exactly sure what he meant by that, because given the fact that William Roddy Bryan was the one who leaked the racist statements that Travis McMichael had made after shooting Ahmaud Arbery, it doesn't seem like he's an ally in any sense of the word that we can think of, which is for the better. I'm glad that Roddy Bryan is telling the truth and not, helping out the people that he was participating in with committing this crime. And at this point, this is when they break and they take a little recess. One of the defense attorneys said that he actually needed to speak with his client. And then after this is when the defense attorneys go and they question the special investigator. That's when it starts to get a little bit interesting. Well, I just wanted to cover the first portion of this because I didn't want this to be a 30, 40 hour long video, because the preliminary hearings themselves were a few hours long. I mean, they were several hours long. But as always, I appreciate you guys watching my video. Like this video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. And whether you like it or not, whether you agree with this situation, whether you're pro Arbery, or you're pro justice, you're pro McMichaels, you're pro Roddy Bryan, I don't care. Whatever you want to share with us, please do so in the comment section down below. As always, I appreciate you guys watching this video. This is Inspiring Inquiry.